What's going on today, guys? We're doing brakes. I talk about brakes a lot on this channel, and today we're going to show you how to adjust them. I'll show all the tools you need to get the job done. They're pretty easy, so let's get to it.
Perfect.
So guys, we have the scooter up on our little work stand here. These are the tools you'll need. How easy is that? One Allen key. So I can't, unfortunately, I don't actually know what size this is because I've actually rubbed it out. I've used this, it's a very common size. I think it's like a 5 or a 6 mil from memory. Don't hold me to it. But if you do have an Allen key set, it'll be in there. It's a very common size Allen key, especially on scooters. So we just need this one Allen key and that's all you'll need. So I'll go get myself a chair and we'll get stuck into the front end and I'll show you how to reset all the bits and pieces for getting your brakes ready to be adjusted. I wind them all the way back to 0, so your adjustment at the top and your adjustment down the bottom. So I'll quickly show you how they're meant to look like before you start adjusting your brakes. So starting off down the bottom here, guys, we just want to make sure that this is wound all the way forward and back up to this with the nut. And on the front bars, we want to make sure that this adjustment nut here is wound all the way forward as well and up against the actual lever themselves. And then now we can finally adjust this Lightning V1. Let's get to it. So guys, before we even unbolt this, what we want to do is actually suss out causing us to lose our brakes, obviously because there's a lot of movement. Obviously pulling it all the way in, there's a lot of movement. So usually the main contributor to this is this piston will push against that way, and usually this one is the one that runs out before the other side. So the other side actually needs a slight adjustment. It's only like half a turn. So what we'll usually do, or a quarter of a turn, is very small adjustment. What we'll do is we'll take this caliper off. Now just be wary, guys, there are shims actually sitting between this bracket here and the actual caliper it's bolted down to. So you don't want to lose those. You can try and catch them on their way out. Oh, well, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. Okay, maybe I'll just lose everything this time. So, if we look at the caliper closely, we can see this big one in the middle here. That's going to move out in the brake pad closer to the disc. And then we can see here, this is that cable that then pushes that piston in, like so. So what we want to do is just adjust this in a little bit more. We can see that one's flush with the body of the actual caliper itself. So we don't really need to adjust that one quite yet. So let's adjust that. We're just going to do a slight turn, and trust me, that will be plenty. Now, unfortunately with this style of brake, guys, it is very tedious. This is why I rave on so much about the hydraulic brakes instead of the cable-driven brakes. Don't get me wrong, guys, these brakes do work and they do work well, and they do pull you up, but they are very finicky and you do need to adjust quite a fair bit and undo this one and pull the the cable through a little bit more and tighten it up further up. And yeah, it's very, very tedious work to adjust everything when the brake pads start going down. So now that we've adjusted that, we're going to put our shims back in. This can be a bit of a tedious task on its own, because what I usually do is I'll pull the caliper up here, rest it up there, push this all the way through. We'll grab our 2 shims, slide them over the bolt, grab our other 2 before we can't get our hands in there. Some people have fancy magnets, unfortunately I do not. So just want to push them in a little bit, just enough to receive the bracket that they're going to bolt into. Slide it over the disc rotor, making sure not to make this fall. There we go, we've got one. Slightly tighten it, move to the rear. There we go. tighten this up. All right, cool. Now they are back on. We can feel if they've made any difference, which they have. There's barely any movement in that. So now we just want to spin test. We've got a bit of noise. So that is just literally just ever so slightly rubbing on that rear disc at the back there, which we can adjust. So what we're going to do is those two bolts there where the brake caliper sits, this is our adjustment. So this is what I was talking about before. We don't want to touch those, but not until now, because now we need to actually move the caliper around to sit directly in the middle of the disc. And by the sounds of things, as much as it's rubbing, it's a consistent rub, which means this rotor is not warped. So it hasn't been hit or put out askew, so it's perfectly straight, which is a good sign. So we'll do that now. Grab our big Allen key again, go on top. We don't have to wind these all the way out. It just needs to be enough to snap the bolt, loosen it off so it's able to move. Same with the back one. Loosen it off. You can actually do this by eye if you're really good. You can actually do this by eye. Some people will pull the caliper and get it to sit in the middle. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't, depending. So we can try that again. Okay, we haven't got it quite round yet, so I'm going to do the old trick that I know, and I'm going to go by eye. So I'm going to go and have a look down the center there and correct it by eye. Now what we want to achieve is a little gap on either side. Sorry guys, if my head's getting in the way. I've just got to make sure that I get this spot on for you. So, should be able to, again, the reason why we're going back and forth is just to make sure that we don't skew the caliper. There might be a slight rub because I've actually made that rear adjustment very, very close to where it needs to be. So it'll probably be a slight rub, a couple of breaks, and it should clear it up. So, let's have a listen. There is a slight warp in this disc that you can hear, which is that zing zing that you hear every now and then. So there is actually a slight warpage to this disc because it's so close and I've made that so tight, and this will be pretty much spot on. After a little bit of a wear down, take it out for a spin, test it out, that rub will actually go away. So I think that one we can call done. Easy enough. So now that the front's done and we can feel that up the top here, we're not diving all the way to the grips. So that can be slightly adjusted from down here. But that is a lot better than what it was, because at the time we didn't have any brakes at all. So you can probably see up here guys, this is our front brake. We've now got a nice healthy gap between there. Before this brake lever was actually touching this, so that's as hard as I can possibly do it. And we've got a nice healthy gap there. So that's really good. Now we can move on to the rear, and we basically just want to copy what we did to the front here onto the rear. So guys, that is how to adjust your cable brakes on your GTS, GTR V2, GTS V2, Lightning V1, all on there. How to adjust it and how to actually make your brakes come back online, because nothing worse than riding without brakes, guys. Can't stress that enough. And that's a big thing that I would suggest everyone make sure that they keep to date on, and always checking the pads. But yes, if your brakes start to feel a little bit weird, definitely adjust your brakes. And I hope this video helped anyone out there that is not sure on how to adjust these. And all you need is just one Allen key. So hope that helped you guys. If it did, please leave a like, comment, subscribe,